Only 4 players remain from that championship Super Bowl Buccaneers defense a couple of seasons ago, but that is not the side of the football for Bucs fans to look forward to in the 2025 season. It is the receiving core led by Mike Evans, of course. 10 straight years of having 1,000 yards or more. He could have 12, 13. Why not in his career? Tied up there with Jerry Rice, the GOAT, at the wide receiver spot, at least for now in a long time. What needs to happen for Tampa Bay to be a competitive? Well, they just need to throw the football the way they have. Baker Mayfield, back-to-back divisional titles. In the 2025 season, you're going to see a lot of Mike Evans in the red zone. You're going to see Emeka Egbuka just making easy snags down the field. That's right. They took a wide receiver 19th overall after they took one in Jalen McMillan the year prior, obviously with that national championship runner-up team in Washington, teammates with Polk and Romo Dunze. Of course, have to mention him. But Chris Godwin, what does his ankle, what does his speed, how does he look dynamic-wise going into next year? That is the question. How will he be able to come back off of injury? And I think he's going to come back well. One of the most underrated players in football last year, Bucky Irving. Unless you're a fantasy guy, you know all about him. Bucky is going to be a featured part of that offense, catching the ball, running the ball. Oregon fans really excited to see Bucky continue to play at a high level in National Football League. So let's get into it. The 2025 season for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, how it all shakes out, the preview and predictions. Week 1, they're on the road. They take on the Atlanta Falcons. This was one of the better games that we saw a year ago with Atlanta and Tampa Bay facing off later in the season, with Atlanta coming back and then falling to Tampa Bay in overtime. I want to say Tampa got the ball and they just didn't give up the football in that OT and beat them. But one of the more fun matchups, seeing Penix and Mayfield do it out. Have the Bucs winning 26-17. This is the type of points that I'm expecting them to put up consistently throughout the year. Balance again throughout. We know about Vita Vea. We understand that Hassan Reddick is expected to have a good role within them and have double-digit sacks. Kalijah Kancey, Logan Hall on that defensive line are he's supposed to be putting pressure on the quarterback and getting after it and stopping Bijan Robinson. They're able to contain him for the most part and limit Penix on the outside, getting the ball to Mooney. And, of course, Kyle Pitts and Drake London all win week 1. Week 2, Monday night, they're at the Houston Texans, one of the best teams in the NFL, one of the better rosters. They're going to continue to improve because CJ Stroud is going to process. He's going to learn. He will be more mature as he gets further along in his NFL career. Of course, he knows Emeka Egbuka as well as anyone can. He was on that semifinal team that fell a little bit short against the Georgia Bulldogs, throwing a lot of passes to Emeka Egbuka. Of course, Marvin Harrison Jr. I have them losing to the Texans, the Bucs losing to the Texans 21-24. Simply, Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter on the outside. They do have the type of guys like Kamari Lassiter, Derek Stingley in the back end, Kalen Bullock, the kid out of USC at number 7. Remember, he had been there, that can cover very well. He's a good tackler. They have the secondary to be able to match up, as well as the talent up front to get pressure on Baker throughout the game. It's a tough matchup, and one of the dark horse Super Bowl matchups that could be the Bucs at the Texans. Week 3, have them beating the Jets 30-17. This is going to be one of their easier games. Have them pulling ahead in New York with a score or two later on. There's just too many guys. Where are the Jets going to go? If they don't get pressure on Baker early and stop the run, force bait, is that the strategy to start off? Is that what Aaron Glenn's going to come out there with? We know as a cornerback, as a guy built on defense, the Detroit Lions were balanced last year. They could have segments. They took the ball away was the main thing they did, getting pressure on the quarterback, forcing you into 3rd and long scenarios. So stopping the run on 1st and 2nd down, getting you to a 3rd and long against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that is so tough because they can easily be in shotgun, fake the handoff, RPO, and you have Emeka Egbuka for 8. Now you're in 2nd and short, 2nd and 2. Mike Evans, Godwin, there's so many weapons they can go to. The Bucs 2-1 to start the year, where they go and they flex their muscle against the Super Bowl champs. I have them beating the Super Bowl champs at home 24-20. Why? Philadelphia will not be able to run the ball in that game. You have to see Vita Vea up close and personal, standing in there and just shoving Cam Jurgens. I got all the respect for the Philly front line, but Vita Vea will be a different animal in this game as well as Kalijah Kancey. You have them dominating up front, limiting Saquon Barkley. Maybe he only has 3 or 4 games under 100 yards. That will be one of them against Tampa. They've just been known as like a better run defense the last couple of years under Todd Bowles. That is the identity. So a win against Philadelphia, you know the story. It's going to end up being Hurts on the third and shorts. He's going to find A.J. Brown, and he's going to be looking on the outside, of course, to Devontae Smith, like trying to find those guys, which is where I think they should just immediately go first. Test that secondary with Jamel Dean and Antoine Winfield Jr. Like that's where it's going to be a little bit of an advantage for Philadelphia is take those shots. Give A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith 20 or more, 25 targets on the game. That's where I would have that game played to 24-20. The Bucs move to 3-1 on the season before they head up to Lumen Field at the Seattle Seahawks in the 12th man. I have them getting a win 26-15, whether it be Jalen Milroe or Sam Darnold. They have very good wide receivers. We'll see Egbuka scoring off against Jackson Smith and Jigba, of course, the former teammates. But that is a fun one, no doubt. Nick Emmenwari, I'm a little bit concerned for Tampa Bay. They just have to keep the ball wherever he's not. If they got to dink and dunk underneath, getting the ball to Godwin and Bucky running the ball, just be careful because that kid lurking in the back end of Seattle will be one of the best players in the NFL within a year or two. He is a ridiculous athlete with a ton of ball skills. Just look at a couple of his highlights or some game film. At that point, the Bucs are 4-1 before they have a game against San Francisco. I'm very much down on San Francisco next year. They've lost so much talent, which is the difficult thing, of course. Who's going to be back and truly healthy for San Francisco next year? Getting Ayuk, of course, McCaffrey. Can he stay on the field? Ricky Pearsall. Even on the defensive side of the ball, there's no Hufanga, there's no Ward, there's no Dre Greenlaw. We talked about 4 of 11 guys returning for Tampa. Like, there's only 2 or 3 guys from the Super Bowl teams from San Francisco that are back. Especially you go back to 2020, 2019, the team that lost to the Chiefs. You got like Bosa and Fred Warner. And then you look at a couple of years ago, like Bosa, Fred Warner, and I'm probably missing someone, but only 2 or 3 guys left. And that Super Bowl was only a couple of years ago. Still have San Francisco coming out with a win, a healthy McCaffrey, a healthy dosage of Pearsall, Kittle, and Ayuk for this. That's, again, the biggest I talked about with Philly. San Francisco, I believe, will see that early on and have Purdy really testing the middle of that defense with Levante David. First time I've mentioned him in this video. Who's been a better middle off-ball linebacker than Levante David? You could say me Bobby Wagner. You could say Fred Warner. You could bring up the likes of Luke Kuechly back 2010. That's right. Levante David was still playing all the way back then with those guys. Mario Davis from the Saints. But Levante has outdone him all probably with the amount of turnovers he has forced. Still have the 49ers beating the Bucs. So 4-2 Bucs. Heads out Detroit. Ford Field on Monday Night Football. Remember, the Detroit Lions beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 2 years ago in the divisional round. The Lions had beaten the Rams in a tight game. Stafford going back to his former home. The Bucs won the division and played the Eagles and beat them very easily. One of the easier playoff wins you'll see. That game was over in the first 5 minutes. The Eagles just fully quit on the season after they started 10-1. So the Bucs looking for revenge, and who knows, this could be very important in the scope of the NFC number 1 seed, the standings where teams are, who gets the home games. Remember I said that game was in Detroit. What if these teams play in the divisional game where it's the 2 versus the 3 seed? This game winds up in Tampa Bay instead of Detroit. It would be huge to win these types of games, those swing games, beating the Eagles and beating the Lions, 2 teams I have winning their divisions next year. Not crazy to say that, of course, but winning those games. Why did they beat the Lions? It's not for stopping the dynamic duo of Williams and Amon-Ra. It's not because they're stopping Montgomery and Gibbs. It's because of the right arm. Right arm. This is my right arm. if it might be flipped around in the screen, of Baker Mayfield. He goes off 400 yards, something like that, against the Detroit Lions on the road. 31-27, Monday night. Buck and Aikman just absolutely appreciating what he sees from Baker, just chucking the ball all over the field for a huge win. Detroit, of course, there's Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch and Hutchinson back, but not enough to be able to corral the Detroit Lions. Why? Because they don't have an answer for Emeka Egbuka. A 5-2 Bucks team heading out to see the New Orleans Saints. It's a blowout. What are the Saints going? This is one of the tougher teams in football next year. Like, they took a second-round quarterback. Didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Like, what are they going to be next year? Like, why take a guy when in following years the draft and you're putting... I hope it all works out for Tyler Shuck. I like Louisville, of course. Kind of became a fan of them watching Lamar Jackson like 6 years ago. But here's the thing with New Orleans that didn't make sense to me, because I have them going 3-14 and not being a threat to have the Bucks blasting them, I think, in both of the matchups. We'll have to see later on in the year what happens when they face up. Anyway, 42-10, they can't stop anything. Baker throws for 5 touchdowns, or I think that, and then Bucky with a score, 42-10, and the Bucks head into the bye with a 6-2 record. Before they come out of the bye, playing a good Patriots team now. They're playing the Patriots at home. I believe that with the new running attack and that offensive line, absolutely revamped. Will Campbell will start any revamp, and then the new identity established by head coach Mike Vrabel. New England is for real. No team should take them lightly, whether it's home, on the road, in a parking lot, in a nightclub. Doesn't matter where you play, New England. Be careful, because Vrabel will hit you in the mouth. He's smart. They will be well coached. They're not going to turn the football over all that much, except for May with some learning pains throughout. But do have the Bucks moving to 7-2, a win against New England at home. At the Buffalo Bills the following week after that, which is just that's popcorn, simply put. The Bills have Hairston, like the secondary has guys like the front. They have always had a good defense. They will continue to have that under Sean McDermott, but Josh Allen's another notch from Baker Mayfield. Like that athleticism, you could ask Baker right now, he'll tell you, I wish I had some of those wheels to be able to move that way, because of that threat that Josh Allen can out-athlete anybody on the NFL field in the red zone and get into score. Have the Bucks dropping the game to Buffalo just because of Josh Allen, the reigning MVP. 7-3 before a Sunday night game, holy cow, at SoFi against the reigning NFC West champs, the Los Angeles Rams. One of my favorite matchups of the year, Sunday night. This is the Sunday before Thanksgiving, and it's going to be great. There's going to be a display of talent. The weapons, of course, Adams and Puka Nacua, Kyron on the ground. The defensive studs, of course, we know what the Rams have, and Byron Young and Verse and Fisk. And on the Bucs side of things, all we've talked about is that receiving talent, but I think a little bit of a display. Some showing of the guns on that side of the ball. Maybe a big hit from Winfield, like that we saw in the NFC Champ game where he forced that fumble against the Packers. Or we see Yaya Diaby with a play over the middle, picking off Matthew Stafford, who has been known to give one away here and again, to throw a big interception. Have the Bucs pulling it out, moving to 8-3 on the season, beating the Rams on the road. An 8-3 Bucs team heading into Week 13 at home against the Arizona Cardinals. We talked about it in Jigba. Gonna harp on this as a Buckeye fan, talking about some of the butt guys on that roster. Marvin Harrison Jr., Paris Johnson, the left tackle, and the wide receiver, going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that's not all. In this draft, the Cardinals went crazy. They were like, we need to improve defense because under Gannon, our offense is going to be phenomenal. Well, they went out and got Walter Nolan, a very high pick. What was he, 17th overall, and a former number 1 overall prospect in the country. Jordan Perch, the 3rd rounder. 2nd rounded, Will Johnson. Will Johnson going to be covering Emeka Egbuka once again. He's been covering Marvin Harrison Jr. Will he be in training camp? Certainly used to playing against Buckeye targets. And then there's Cody Simon and Denzel Burke in that Cardinal defense going up against Emeka Egbuka. That one will be fun. There's a lot of former Buckeyes in that game scoring off against each other, and Walter Nolan, think that he shows up and has a big play. 31-29 have the Bucks falling to 8-4 on the year, a loss to the Cardinals, but in a respectable fashion. Have Arizona having a good year next year. They're going to be a fringe, maybe a playoff team. The 8-4 Bucks hosting the Saints, and that's another win, 28-14. Think this one might not even be as close to the score, that they just are a better team. You can clearly see the differential in roster and talent throughout those teams, with them trending in like stale for New Orleans, maybe a couple glimpses of the future, nice moments, whereas Tampa Bay is just a well-oiled machine that may be the most underrated NFL team around. The 9-4 Bucks with the Falcons Thursday night game. This is going to be the surprise because it's a home game. Have Atlanta and Michael Penix as a click. Do you remember some of those games where Penix just could throw a ball 40 yards on a line and just didn't seem to miss? This is what we're going to see from him at some point this year, and they just might hit a buzzsaw in the Bucks defense against Penix. Have them losing to the Falcons 34-24, and Atlanta showing themselves to be a legitimate threat in that division for the years to come with Penix at the helm. Think that he will be the long-term answer in Week 16. So they're 9-5 at this point. At Carolina, same thing. Bryce Young shows up ready to deal. We talked about Leggett and Tat McMillan, but Chuba Hubbard shows up in this case. Have the Panthers winning 26-22. So, all of a sudden, the Bucks are 9-6 heading into the last 2 weeks of the regular season, where they are at the Dolphins, blow them out. 37-21. What I've talked about in terms of the roster, Baker Mayfield throws 4 touchdowns, and Bucky Irving adds in another score himself. This is a Tampa Bay team that can utterly thrash people, and they will do it again the next week and get to 11-6, win the division at 11-6, and be right there for the second or third seed in the NFC, potentially contending, like we talked about, beating the Eagles. We mentioned them beating the Lions, the other contenders, and beating the Rams. All 3 other teams that have projected to win their divisions in the other divisions of the NFC, as well as the teams that won their divisions last year. Will there be another contender? We just don't really know. But beating the Panthers 33-17 to end the 2025 season. And once again, Bucks find themselves in the playoffs. It was very tough to see them lose to Washington. Baker with that fumble in the fourth quarter. It was just like, that can't happen, but it really did. And that was a game that was so winnable throughout the offense, and just Jaden gets down the field late and they take care of business on the road. And then sure enough, the Commanders go all the way to the NFC Championship game. Let me know in the comments what you think about Tampa Bay's season, whether I am way off base, the team's going to be better, a lot worse. Probably think you're going to somewhat agree with me. There's just a lot of talent in that division. They're up against Carolina, a little bit improved, maybe take another 2 games on the step. New Orleans just they're not going to be very good this year. And then Atlanta, look to see some strides from them. So let me know in the comments. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe for more content in the future. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Best player in college football.
That Georgia and Ohio State game, New Year's Eve, is going to be a classic.
Josh Blunder. Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Blunder.
To the 40, 35, 30. Espinosa to the 20.